Varnashram one day, Vanaprastha ashram.
All right. I'll give you some notes from Vanaprastha ashram. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. I'm going to turn some more light on. I'm a little bit in the dark here. Give me a moment, if you would. Okay, better. Well, in that case, okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. 1 second more, and then we'll have everything a little bit together. Just a little bit. Let's see. Okay. I don't have a lot of material all pulled together in one place. I have a file of stuff, but I need to organize it more to give a cohesive presentation. So we'll do off the cuff here. In all of Prabhupada's books, you'll find the Varnashram system emphasized. We'll find that although he considers it external, he considers it important because it supports Krishna consciousness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when hearing from Ramananda Roy and asking him what the essential instructions were, rejected Varnashram as a suggestion. He said, Eho Bhaya, that's external. But then he also rejected Sarvadharman Pratyaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja as external. He wanted to go further. So it doesn't mean that we have no interest in these things. It just means that our goal is higher. Stane statas shrutigatam tanuvan manobir. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted that one should engage, that one should stay in one's position and hear shrutigatam. But coming to the point again, Prabhupada gives emphasis throughout on Varnashram, and specifically, he speaks in all of his books about the Vanaprastha ashram. In the first canto, it's quite prominent in the discussion between Vidura and Dhritarashtra, where Prabhupada emphasizes that one should not stick to family life till the very end. And Prabhupada continuously, or not continuously, often quotes Panchashordham Vanam Brajet. After the age of 50, one should go to the forest, or one should accept the Vanaprastha ashram. I've discussed before that there are different systems of Vanaprastha life. In Vanaprastha life, first of all, the theme of Vanaprastha life is detachment. In Brahmachari life, there's training and control of the mind and senses. There's no association between man and woman. there's training in Vedic knowledge. Then there's family life, the grihastha, in which there's regulated sense gratification. And again, cultivation of Krishna consciousness as the central theme. And then we come to the vanaprastha ashram, where the theme is detachment. And then sannyas. So why detachment? That's described. Pumsastriya maitini bhavameta. Because this attachment between man and woman is the basic principle of material existence. Elsewhere in Bhagavatam, it's said that if one can become free from this attachment, one conquers the unconquerable Supreme Personality of Godhead. That attachment is so strong. So if our goal is to become attached to Krishna, then we want to loosen our attachments that come from the bodily conception of life and from this attachment between man and woman, husband and wife, which reinforces, or as we say these days, powers this attachment. Ta griha kshetra sutta aptavitar. So the whole theme of the vanaprastha ashram is detachment from our material identity, our material attachments, and attachment for Krishna. What is that? What is that? Surivarya dehinam? Tat sarumanye suravarya dehinam sada samudvigna diyam asatgrahat. It vatmapatam griham andakupam vanam gatoyam harimahashrayeta. My dear best of the demons, Prahlad says to his father, I didn't learn anything good in my studies, but this I learned, that for one whose mind is always disturbed by attachment or grasping onto that which is impermanent, it's best to get free from family life. Hitvatma patam, which is deadly for spiritual advancement. Grihamandakupam, which is like a blind well. Blind well means a well that's covered over by grass, so that the poor animal falls into it and it dies. So, my dear best of the demons, it's better to go to the forest. And Harimashrayeta, take shelter of Hari, Krishna. So, of course, it's not expected that devotees will have the same kind of material attachments as Hiranyakashipu. But Prabhupada makes the point that for everyone, really, this detachment is wanted. This detachment is wanted. Detachment from family life and greater attachment to Krishna. Now, the Vanaprastha ashram, although focusing on detachment, is different from sannyas. What's the difference? Sannyasi can't have anything to do with his wife. Finished. Nothing to do with women. But in the Vanaprastha ashram, still there's association allowed. There are several systems of the Vanaprastha ashram. The Vanaprastha, basically, you can take two varieties. The husband and wife may stay together, or they may stay apart. If they stay together, they may live together in a holy place like Vrindavan, Mayapur, just like our Nandulal Prabhu has moved to Mayapur with his wife, so they're living as vanaprasthas. Or the husband and wife may travel together to different holy places, seeing the different forms of the Lord, associating with devotees of the Lord, becoming free from material identification. There's so many holy places throughout India or now throughout the world where husband and wife can go and be engaged in Krishna's service, Krishna's thought. So these are two systems. Or a third system, the wife can stay at home and the husband may go live in a holy place, or the husband may go traveling to holy places, and the wife stays at home with the family and does bhajan, chanting Hare Krishna, rendering devotional service, worshiping the deity, and she provides a example or spiritual direction for the other family members, and the grown sons are meant to take the responsibility for her care, her needs. So these are different systems of the Vanaprastha ashram. And it's expected, if it's 25 years for the Vanaprastha ashram, it starts off from the point of more attachment, just gradually getting free from material affairs, and progresses over time. Greater detachment from Maya, greater attachment to Krishna. Did I have another point there? Let's see. Okay. Varnashrama Vata Purushena Parapuman Vishnua Rajyate Panta. The whole point of all of the varnas and ashrams is to satisfy Lord Vishnu, Krishna. That's the purpose. Otherwise, Shamaevi Kevalam, it's a waste of time. Sangsiddhi Haritoshanam, to satisfy Krishna is the ultimate purpose. Now, what are the rules and regulations of Vanaprastha life? The headline regulation is no sex. In only one ashram is sex allowed. That's the Grihastha ashram. For the brahmachari and sannyasi, sex life is strictly forbidden. And for the vanaprastha, sex life is forbidden. Simply no sex. None at all. And so this is a practical thing. We can say, well, we're all devotees, so this is automatic. It should be automatic, but it may not be. We know from speaking to some devotees that even though they're in the Grihastha ashram, they're following, what is it, the word used for it? I'm following, but I'm not following the strict four principles. The idea is that there's a strict and a non-strict standard, which is not something Prabhupada came up with or gave us, but this idea is there. Well, because I'm not having illicit sex outside of marriage, I'm following the four rules. That means we are having sex in marriage. It's not for procreation, but it's regulated in some way or other. Okay, I'm not going to pass judgment on that or discuss that at any length. I'm just observing that such a thing is there, and that vanaprastha life means that should stop. Either it should have stopped before or never gone on, but now if we're serious about vanaprastha, no sex. Otherwise, forget the title vanaprastha. It doesn't mean anything. Forget you're not a grihastha. You're not even a grihastha. You're grihameti, or aspiring grihastha, or something like that. So vanaprastha ashram means what's done is done. Whatever was. But if we seriously want to get the benefit of the vanaprastha ashram and live with integrity as vanaprasthas, no sex whatsoever. No sex between husband and wife, no sex with anyone else, no what Prabhupada called artificial sex, no sex, zero. As practical measures, I can suggest that this means, even if there's already no sex, that husband and wife can take a step toward greater detachment by sleeping separately, separate beds, separate rooms. That's not much to give up. It's not going to the forest. It's not, I'll never see you again. But it's very practical. It's a step that one can take without much difficulty. And it's at the same time tangible. And in one sense, substantial, because we may be used to being together, and now this is something different, something new. It's a step of it toward detachment. Separate beds, and better yet, separate rooms. Especially if you've had children, they've moved out, there's a free room. And if they haven't, there's a living room, or there's some room. Put a mat down, put something down there, and now you've got it. This is doable and powerful. A suggestion also, this came from one of my Ayurvedic doctors: husband and wife should not dress or undress in front of one another, because one thing can lead to another thing. Whatever it is that can lead towards sex, that should be stopped. That should be stopped. So these are practical, and that's kind of what I'm after in my larger Vanaprastha course, which I haven't taught for some time, is practical steps. What can we do step by step? So this is the headline item: no sex. No sex, and gradual detachment from this sort of sense of that this is the essential companionship of my life. We're not cutting it, but we're trimming it. Another practical thing. Also, I should say, now if we're moving toward the Vanaprastha ashram, then I'm retiring from my job, from my work. That we should also look toward. Not that I'm still working full-time, but I'm a Vanaprastha. But retiring, just one good example of a Vanaprastha couple is our Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu and his wife. Their children grew up, and they thought, well, what are we going to do? Just sitting in a house and whatever. I won't say what they thought, they can say, but they showed the practical example that let us move into the temple and spend our full time serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that they've been doing for many years. So that's an example, living together in a holy place. You don't have to go to Mayapur Vrindavan. They've moved to the Towaco temple, and they're busy in serving Krishna. Very practical. Another suggestion: cut your input from the material world. That means, first of all, television. Cut the wires. Sell the thing. Give it away. Take an axe to it. Whatever it is. Vanaprastha life doesn't mean sitting at home watching the cricket match the Bollywood film, Iskcon Cinema, plus also blah, 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 blah. And the modern life tends to pull us into this relationship with the television. So it occupies a central room, a central place in our home. We gather around it, we watch it. Even if we're doing something else, we keep it running in the background. This is just a distraction from the ultimate goal of life. So I would suggest get rid of it. And you'll feel a happiness. The more we get rid of the things that we don't need, this is patikulyasya varjanam, a step of surrender, getting rid of that which is not favorable to Krishna consciousness, the more we become happy. Vanaprastha life doesn't mean suffering, greater suffering. It means greater happiness. Although it means greater austerity, austerity leads to happiness. So no television, just ditch it. And then count that as a victory. What did we do? Retired from the job, moved into separate quarters, got rid of the television. Okay, these are negative things. Know this, know this, know this. Maybe get rid of needless stuff, possessions that we don't need. Hold a garage sale. Just get rid of so many things and feel that you're lightening your load. Then, on the positive side, more service, more hearing, more chanting, more reading, more puja. According to your particular inclination, someone likes to hear more, someone likes to chant more, someone likes to do pujari service more, someone likes to preach more, someone likes to mentor, someone likes to do practical seva. We know that there's so few people to do service because everyone's working, but the vanaprasthas are free. They can give their time for service to the deity, service to the temple, service to the preaching mission. So more service. It's not just negative, know this, know this, know this, know this, but also positive. More service. That's the key thing. If we do more service, the detachment will also follow. Janayatiyashu vairagyam jnanam cha yada ahoitakam. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. On the negative side, again, if you have a newspaper, whatever newspaper subscriptions you have, whatever magazine subscriptions you have, if they're not meant for the service of Krishna, cancel them. When they come in, naturally we read them, we look at them, we browse through them. Unless they're necessary, and what's really necessary, cancel. And save your time. Now you can, whatever time was going to be invested in the magazine or the newspaper, that's yours for reading Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting Hare Krishna. Cut. Unnecessary necessities. Cut. This is all Gramya Katha. Gramya Katha Nashunibe. We don't need Gramya Katha. We want to increase Krishna Katha. Limit your computer time. The computer is replacing the television in many ways as the source of material entanglement. Place limits on that. I could talk more about that, but I won't right now. And avoid mundane social occasions. This is found in Srimad Bhagavatam in the, 7th canto, where the instructions are given to Yudhishthira Maharaj about varnashram, that the grihastas, for the vanaprasthas to be engaged in ordinary social affairs is not at all good. And we see this, that people in their retirement, what is their life? Watching television, and then someone's graduation, someone's marriage, someone's engagement, someone's birthday, and they go from social occasion to social occasion. That means still on the bodily platform, still in mundane life. So the vanaprastha should not be very busy in social occasions. All right, sometimes there may be some unavoidable, but otherwise, thank you for the invitation, but now that I've accepted vanaprastha life, I'm no longer attending such things. Again, because I'm not this body, because these relationships are temporary, and not only temporary, they're soon to be extinguished because death is approaching. So voluntarily, before we're forced, we give up this social life. I know somebody's a devotee, somebody's half a devotee, this, that, but in these occasions for family life, this is what we want to get away from. So that's another thought, mundane, because it distracts our attention from our full focus. The purpose is that we want to focus fully on Krishna. I think that's my short list of, and enough for a day. There's more, there's lots more that one can do. There's so many opportunities and adventures that one can embark on in the vanaprastha life so that it becomes very happy life, actually. The more one makes progress, the more one feels relieved of the burdens of material entanglement. But I think I've given the basic ideas, the basic direction, and some practical steps that are probably enough to get us started. And I'm going to stop there and see what kind of questions there might be or comments. And a deep silence fell over the assembly. I wonder what thoughts might be stirring around and who might wish to be bold enough to bring some thought forward. Oh,
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
I didn't check my chat box, of course. So okay, there is okay, so I'll take that live question, and then there's one at least in the chat box. Tina has a question, but she can't unmute herself. So maybe you can see about that.
It's okay, Maharaj. Please
unmuted.
address. Yes, please address the questions in the chat box. They were first. Thank you so much.
I should take the question in the chat box. Okay. Rasa asks, in regard to the vanaprastha ashram, if one by force of circumstance is not involved in family life via divorce or permanent separation, is it advised that the devotee in this situation should pursue the vanaprastha ashram? Would that depend if he is suitably detached from family life? We find that many devotees in this situation have not been able to stay in the grihastha ashram, but are not necessarily ready to move to vanaprastha ashram as a natural next step. I've joked that I want to start a GBC ministry for creative divorce, because in India we have Varnashram, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, and in the West, and increasingly in India, we have Brahmacharya, Grihastha, divorce, and remarriage. So I would look upon, statistically, half the marriages end in divorce or permanent separation. So my advice would be to a person who finds themselves in such a situation, take it as a blessing. You might have found it very difficult to break that attachment for your husband, for your wife, but somehow or other it broke by force of circumstance. Take it as a blessing and become more attached to Krishna. Prabhupada gave that advice. I think the first divorce, or there was one Krishna Dasi who left her husband and took up with another man. First one in Iskcon that I can recall. And the Prabhupada's direction for the husband was, now you become more attached to Krishna, that's all. If the husband leaves, if the wife leaves, why go through the same uncertain business again? Statistically, by the way, divorces are higher on second marriages. It's not that people learn a lot in the first time around, and so the second time they get it better. Divorces for second marriages are higher statistically. I don't know the statistic, but it's higher. Just take it as a blessing. Somehow or other, my material course of life has been broken. Now let me become more attached to Krishna. Just like, who was that king? Maharaj Anga. He somehow or other, he got a son who turned out to be just rubbish, just incorrigible, vicious, Vena. So the king was so disappointed, frustrated. What does he do? In the middle of the night, one night, he just leaves, he gets out of bed, leaves the palace, and disappears into the forest. The citizens woke up and, where's the king? They were looking for the king the way a yogi looks for the super soul. So he took it as an advantage that somehow or other, first he thought, this is terrible, this is a disaster. Then he thought, actually, a person who's got a bad son is better off than a person who's got a good son, because the bad son becomes a source of detachment. So he took it as Krishna's blessing. And that's one way to embark on the Vanaprastha ashram. Somehow my wife left me, my husband left me, whatever. All right. Prabhupada gave that instruction to one of the ladies also, that forget this nonsense. Oh, I remember who it was. To forget this nonsense husband. Now make Krishna your husband. So that would be the suggestion. Why, especially in later years, why embark on the thing again? Why chew the chewed? If you're 40, if you're 50, why go back? Now's the time for detachment. There's not that much happiness in family life in these older years anyway. So just, if at all possible, of course, if it's not possible, don't go for illicit sex. That's worse. Better to get married. But far better, just call it a day. Been there, done that. I've been married. Whatever happiness was there, whatever misery was there, and I'm done with it. Just take it as Krishna's blessing and embark on the next stage. Okay, now let's see is that all right? Shamkund, how practical is it to take Vanaprastha at the age of 50, considering the official retirement age is 62? And most people are working after 50 because of health insurance. Well, one has to consider these things, but I think it's practical. First of all, that our official retirement age of 62 is no guarantee that we'll live to 62. My father died at the age of 54. So there's no guarantee that you'll live to collect your insurance. That's the first thing. And one becomes a slave, working for another 12 years because I have to collect the insurance. So that's one way of looking at it. And another consideration is that as I'm, what is that? Rakshasyati ti vishvashvam. Apokritve varanam tata. Krishna will maintain me. Krishna will protect me. The Goswamis didn't have health insurance. The Vanaprasthas, how many Vanaprasthas in the Vedic culture had health insurance? It's a relatively new concept. But in our society, we should also develop the culture that the responsibility of the grahastas is to maintain the vanaprasthas. We've talked about charity. This is where charity is supposed to be given to the brahmacharis, to the sannyasis, to the vanaprasthas. And then we say, well, it's not practical. We don't have enough. We can't maintain. Well, then we certainly don't have enough for being charitable to the world and saving the state of New Jersey from hunger and all of that. Charity begins at home. It should start with the vanaprasthas. The grahastas should, this is the cost of the license. We say that grahasta life is a license for sense gratification. Licenses don't come free. This is the cost of the license, that one is required to be charitable to the brahmacharis, to the vanaprasthas, to the sannyasis. That's necessary. Apart from that, these things become more practical when we cut our material fixed costs. This is, our expenses. I have to work to meet my expenses. It's harder to work to meet my expenses than it is to lower the expenses. So that's another project for the vanaprasthas, how to radically cut their needs. Cut this, again cut. And the Indian business community is quite expert at that. Why do Indian businessmen excel? Partly because they know how to cut their fixed expenses. The lower your fixed expenses, the easier it is to break even. So that's another practical step. Yes, so those two things, those few things. I may not live to collect my health insurance, and I have to depend finally on Krishna. My health insurance won't save me. Even with having a good doctor, the patient may die. Or with no doctor, the patient may live. So finally, everything depends on Krishna, not on the doctor, not on the health insurance, not on all these arrangements. Whatever we have, that's what we have. So these are some thoughts. Apart from that, even if I think I have to keep working this, that, so start doing everything, start pushing in that direction. Do I have to work so many hours? Do I have to work this, that? Do I have to have a television? Do I have to have, can I live in a separate room? Can we live can we downsize our living? Can we, in so many ways, can we increase our bhajan? So it's not that, well, if I'm working, then forget the rest of it. But better if we can cut the work, all right, I sacrifice whatever it is in health insurance, but we carry on. So that's a thought. Do you, how's that, Shamkun? Do you want to speak to that, or anyone else want to speak to that? I know I haven't had health insurance until Obama. The what is that? The Obamacare came in, and now everybody has to register for health insurance. And it so turned out that because I've never worked seriously in my life, I'm eligible for what they call elder Medicare, which means the state pays for everything, basically. But I didn't, when I took sannyas, I didn't look first to see if I'd have elder Medicare. So, and somehow the point is not that it was very brave, but that Krishna's maintained me. Whatever I've needed, Krishna supplied. So far, I haven't died. Every day I've gotten my chapatis. Every day I have a place to stay. Every time I've gotten sick, somehow or other, the need has been met. And now I don't have that far to go before I have to cross the finish line. So from my practical experience also, Krishna provides. Prabhupada said that. That was like a slogan practically for Prabhupada, one of his slogans, Krishna provides. So that's a fact. That the more we depend on Krishna, the more we'll find that Krishna will protect me, Krishna will maintain me. Ananyas Chinti, what is that? Yes, Ananyas Chintiyanto Mam Ye Jana Paryupasate Tesham Nitya Biyuktanam Yoga Kshemam Bahamyam. Krishna says, I provide what they need. Narad Muni told the hunter, break your bow. What? Break my bow? That's my livelihood. Don't worry, I'll send your necessities. And in fact, you know the story, the hunter wound up with so much that he had to give away what people were giving him. So these are some of the thoughts. Radha says, my wife and I have been married over 40 years. We make a good preaching team together. There's no question of divorce or not following the principles. What is your advice? Good. Preach, 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 preach. You're following the principles, you're preaching. Preach, 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 preach. We have, among other examples of vanaprasthas, we have, for example, Prithu Prabhu, my godbrother, one of my heroes, who's been traveling around for years and years, college campuses and so on, he and his wife, and that's what they do. They preach, 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 preach. The Yadugara and Vishaka, they're another example of not official vanaprasthas, but really vanaprasthas for so many years. Preach, 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 preach. In my list, I have a short list actually in front of me. Pancharatna Prabhu, he and his wife, serving, they're preaching. The Badahari Prabhu, traveling a lot with Indraduna Maharaj. Sometimes his wife is there, sometimes she's not there. I met them in Lachwa. They recently sold, I think, their house and just throwing themselves more and more into preaching. So there are many examples of grahastas who are still together, but basically it's preaching. So that's good. But then also be looking toward, this is not permanent. This is not permanent. But after vanaprastha, but then yes, preach, 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 preach. If make that your full engagement, and Krishna will give you further direction. I like it. Preach, 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 preach. Our Atmaram Prabhu and his wife preaching. Sankarshan Prabhu, those who know are my Western god brother Sankarshan, he and his wife preaching. And look toward increasing detachment. Any other thoughts or comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
If it's okay, I have a couple of questions. So the Varnashra system has been around, as you can say, since the beginning of time. And we see in the many other yugas, sannyas meant going into the forest, perhaps living on just branches and berries. And in Kali Yuga, it seems that it's a little different. And I apologize for any offenses. This is for my own understanding. That sannyas, for example, it's traveling around and preaching. A lot of my essential question is, nowadays in Kali Yuga, is there actually difference between Vanaprastha and sannyas for the man, other than, I would say, externals, but it seems that it's almost impossible for nowadays in Kali Yuga for the men to go into the forest, and it's still very much actively engaged in this world. And so is there actually a difference today for Vanaprastha and sannyas for the man? And
let's just stop there before you go further. So is there a difference between Vanaprastha and sannyas? Because these days the forest, the roots and berries route doesn't seem to be quite what it was. So is there a difference? The real question is not that this is both for the Vanaprasthas and the sannyasis. The Vanaprasthas used to go to the forest and live on roots and berries, not just the sannyasis. The Vanaprasthas used to do that. We hear about Prithu Maharaj and Archie, his wife. That's what they did. They went to the forest and performed severe austerities. So it's not, is there a difference between sannyas and Vanaprastha in this age? But it's the difference between going to the forest and not going to the forest. In this age, who's going to go to the forest and live on roots and berries? That's no longer possible. Even if you found a good forest to live in, some forest ranger would come and kick you out, So the acharyas give the hint that in this age, you can live in the Vrindavan forest. When Prabhupada built the guest house at the Krishna Balaram temple, his idea quite definitely was that this was for the Vanaprasthas, so that retired people could come to Vrindavan and do bhajan, be engaged in devotional service, see the deity, chant Hare Krishna, worship Krishna Balaram, read the books. That's practical. To make a show of going off into the forest is impractical, not going to happen.
My apologies, Maharaj. So you are saying there is a difference today than from the Vanaprastha ashram and the sannyas.
They're both different from what they were. The sannyasis and the Vanaprasthas used to go off to the forest. Nobody goes to the forest anymore. That's not possible. So this is possible, that go to Vrindavan. I have another godbrother, Vasudev Prabhu from Fiji. He was a very big businessman, but I saw that in his older days, he retired to Vrindavan along with he had two wives actually. I saw him there with one of his wives. And they were just traditional arrangement. He had two wives, both wonderful. And that's what he did. He went to Vrindavan. So that you can do. Go to Vrindavan, chant Hare Krishna, get the association of Krishna in Vrindavan Dham, get the association of the devotees, and see how Krishna makes your life more and more wonderful. There's just, yes. So that's the point there. There's a question here. Many times I've seen people's mental faculties and physical health deteriorate quickly after taking retirement. How to avoid this fate when taking up the Vanaprastha ashram? Two answers. One is everyone's physical health and so on generally deteriorates in old age. We've waited to 62 or 65. It's not that necessarily a causal relationship. I retired and then I fell apart. I was going to fall apart anyway. That's the first thing. That's the age for falling apart. We're all on the downward part of the bell curve at this point. After we've passed 40, really, the bell curve goes up. We're growing. We have some byproducts, and then deterioration, dwindling, and finally death. That's the first thing. But there's another answer that yes, people give up their work, and then life is meaningless. My life was defined by my going into the office every day, by my accomplishments, my little accomplishments in the world of work. And now I have nothing to live for. I'm on the golf course. I go fishing. I watch television. Life is dull. And then people fall apart. So that's not vanaprastha life. Vanaprastha life doesn't mean to reduce oneself to a drizzle. It means increased engagement in Krishna's service. Prabhupada is the example. He went preaching in Jhansi. He retired to Vrindavan in this way. He didn't just say, okay, it's not just negative, giving up my job, giving up my this, giving up my that. It's Prabhupada's, what is that? That gives us a life anew and fresh, Prabhupada wrote. So that's the idea of vanaprastha life. It's not dismal. It's not just giving up and having a dry life of nothing in it, but it's fresh life, new opportunities. The Grahastas are always saying, we have no time. No time for reading the books, no time. Now you get the time. And when we use that time for preaching or for bhajan, for reading, for Krishna conscious activities, then we get first of all, even our health will improve materially, fewer anxieties, fewer this, fewer that, and spiritually, perfect health. Go back home, back to Godhead. All right, our time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. And I think that's a very good point that you made. A lot of people say retirement is the number one cause of death. Well, it just coincides with it. That's the age of death also. But also there's, like you said, Maharaj, it's a more refreshing, when it's Krishna conscious driven retirement, it's actually more active. And a lot of the mental faculties that get degraded are just because we're so bored and we're not engaging our thinking muscles anymore. And so they say, you should take some word puzzles and do a lot of Sudoku and things like that to keep your brain sharp. But I mean, our Krishna conscious program, makes us sharper and sharper because we're trying to understand these abstract concepts of the soul and so many, intriguing philosophies and so many messages. And it just makes us stronger and stronger. So, I mean, you're reading more. I mean, it's just so wonderful, the whole program.
Associating with devotees.
Yeah. So something to look forward to, not something.
Yes.
It's really enlivening, even to think about it. Some people think it's retirement is something pastel and boring, but it's something to look forward to as the golden time of our life, something enlivening that I finally have enough time to read Prabhupada's books more deeply than I do. So.
And this is our example to the world also. What are you supposed to do in your old age?
Right.
The world thinks you retire to a kind of an adult community with a golf course and social affairs and all. We have such a better idea.
Yeah.
So we can present this to all the retired people of the world, or the people who should retire. This is what you do. This is how you find perfection in your old age.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Maharaj. I really appreciate you stepping in last second. And thank you all the dear devotees who stayed on to hear this katha. So upcoming announcements. This week, So our week continues Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, the second canto lecture series with Jayadvaita Maharaj. So please join us tomorrow, it's Wednesday, and on Friday as well. On Thursday, we have His Holiness Badri Narayana Swami Maharaj, who's going to be talking on the topic of Srila Prabhupada Leela. And then Saturday, we will not be having any classes on this channel. However, Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, we'll be covering 11 o'clock for a couple hours. We'll be covering the New York Rath Yatra. So they'll be broadcasting on this channel and other channels. So if you don't have any other channel on your list, you can join this one. It's the same content. And then Saturday evening on the Brooklyn Temples channel, Zoom channel, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj will be addressing the devotees at 6 p.m. So you can find that information on the Iskcon of Brooklyn website. And then Sunday evening, Mitra Sena Prabhu and Maharaja Mataji will be giving the class. It's Sunday evening at 6 p.m. So please note that. Very wonderful speakers, and they've been serving Srila Prabhupada for decades, his movement, and they've been preaching in the South, in the deep South in America, and they have many, many wonderful, interesting, and funny tales to tell on the interaction with the people and how many of them became devotees. It's something to look forward to. So please mark your calendars for Sunday, and thank you all once again for joining today, and we look forward to seeing all of you. So I'd like to request Nilmani Prabhu to offer the final words of thanks this evening, and then we can have all the other devotees also say a quick Haribol. Nilmani Prabhu, yeah, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for stepping in at the last minute. As Madan Gopal Prabhu said, impromptu class. It was very lively topic, very thought-provoking topic, especially for people like me, who probably fall into that category. And just an update on Govinda Prabhu. He did connect back with me and apologize. He was caught in hospital with a devotee's mother who had suffered a massive heart attack till late at night, and therefore he slipped this morning. So we will work to reschedule him at another date. So apologies from us for missing him on his schedule, but thank you, Maharaj, for stepping in. Thank you to all the devotees for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Nilmani.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dandavad Pranam Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavad.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dandavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Before I retire for the night.
Hmm?
I just wanted to say thank you before I go retire for the night.
Hare
Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much always. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, that was a nice class. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much.
Hare